Old friends checking in for the 49ers, especially at that linebacker position where San Francisco has had the best room in the league over the past decade. Reuben Foster, remember him? An endorsement of Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and Johnny Holland. Maybe not referring to the Brandon Ayuk situation, but this was something. And of course, Dre Greenlaw going to be back this year. Speaking of old friends, speaking of linebackers, I'm in Nashville until I head to the Bay Area for training camp. This is a look at the new Titans Stadium. It's not going to be open until the 2027 season, right next to the old Nissan Stadium. But as you can tell, it is making progress. And this is where Robert Saleh is now the coach. And Saleh came up as a linebackers coach specialist and then turned into a defensive coordinator with the 49ers. Obviously loved Reuben Foster, loved Dre Greenlaw, lobbied for the 49ers to keep Dre Greenlaw, but they were unable to in that 2025 season. Now Robert is with the Tennessee Titans, and the 49ers re-signed Greenlaw, who was not bad in his one season for the Denver Broncos. In fact, his final game, the AFC Championship game, might have been the best one. Over a 90 on the grading scale against the run there in the snow at Mile High Stadium. Dre dealt with a quad injury, a torn quad in the offseason after he left the 49ers that really slowed him down on top of the Achilles injury that he was already recovering from the year prior. Managed only 34 snaps for the 49ers in 2024 coming off that Achilles. But by the end of 2025, he was past both of those injuries and feeling really, really good.
I kind of felt like I could go and practice and I could warm up and I could do everything and I didn't got to worry about no pain or nothing. So I ain't got to worry about what shoes I got on, all that kind of stuff. So I'd say probably about last year is when I first felt like, for at least a week or two or multiple days in a row straight that I felt like, all right, I'm good to go now. So, and I've been feeling great in Achilles ever since. So.
Now, it's important to remember that a typical Achilles recovery might see the player back on the field the next season, but he's not fully back to himself until the season after that. So Dre Greenlaw's illustration of the timeline there makes a whole lot of sense, and I think that it is very possible that the 49ers get a full throttle Dre Greenlaw here in 2026. They're not paying a whole heck of a lot for that. And remember that he was the best player on the field when he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. $7.5 million for Dre here in 2026. Remember that he left the 49ers for the Broncos at a price tag of $13 million per year. Denver cut him after just that one season, but the 49ers have managed to save millions, all while Denver got a worse version of Dre Greenlaw as he was still recovering from the Achilles injury and obviously suffered that quad injury as well. So the 49ers, I think, played that right. They wanted to retain Greenlaw in 2024, but not at all costs. They were willing to let the Denver Broncos overpay him, and now they get Dre Greenlaw at a much more cost-efficient $7.5 million per year. And of course, they're getting Fred Warner back as well. It's a linebacker room that Robert Saleh would have loved to have last year. But instead, he is in Nashville. He can go and visit Cheekwood to get his San Francisco fix. Look at this. An entire summer train exhibition, miniature train exhibition to celebrate America's 250th birthday, highlighted by the Golden Gate Bridge.
Did you know that the Golden Gate Bridge was initially designed for trains to go across? Well, this version sticks true to the original plan.
Yep, that would have been cool. Just like the rest of this exhibit. Trains from everywhere, including, look at this, a trolley car from San Francisco. Except it was broken down. Maybe this was just realism. Look up the San Francisco Muni meltdown from the 1990s. Locals, OGs will understand the reference. And if Robert Saleh is missing the Bay Area, well, he could go here. He could also go to what I deemed finally a good burrito find in Nashville. Nice taco truck right next to a tiki bar. And tiki bars are obviously very Bay Area coded. Look up the Tonga Room. It's a really cool legacy that dates back to around the time of World War II when the troops were coming back from the Pacific Theater. Seriously, though, Tonga Room back in San Francisco, I think we're going to have to do a show on that this season. Right now, though, we're talking about that linebacker position. More on Dre Greenlaw in a bit. Let's return to the Reuben Foster tweet from Wednesday. Now, I think this is particularly meaningful because we all know that Reuben's career with the 49ers flamed out due to off-field issues, and we know how upset and disappointed Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were in him at the time that they had to cut him in 2018. The fact that he is speaking highly of Lynch and Shanahan, I think, shows that Reuben Foster has matured a lot in the time since that 2018 separation from the 49ers. And he also recognizes what the 49ers have built from a leadership standpoint. Now, I don't know if he tweeted this in relation to the Brandon Ayuk situation or not, but I think just on the surface level, it is worth noting that the 49ers have very, very strong football brass. John Lynch is one of the very best general managers in football. Doesn't get nearly enough credit for keeping the building as stable as it has been over the course of the past decade with so much happening. The 49ers could have capsized at some point. They haven't. And I think that John Lynch is at the top of the list of stabilizing figures in that building. And then, of course, there is Kyle Shanahan. We all know one of the best play callers in the game, but when it comes to stabilizing figures, the 49ers have needed one at both the head coach position and at the GM position. And I think that they have both in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Reuben Foster also shouted out to Johnny Holland, 49ers linebackers coach, who has recently been promoted. So now there's a new linebackers coach by title, and that is KJ Wright. So Holland and Wright are both going to get to work with a linebacker core that has Fred Warner returning. Remember, 49ers didn't have Fred last year. Dre Greenlaw playing that weak side position. And of course, availability is a concern for Dre Greenlaw for obvious reasons. But the 49ers have also been loading up with rookie contract talent behind him. There is Nick Martin, who played his rookie season and elevated all the way into a starting spot at strong side linebacker. Mind you, after he looked very, very raw in the preseason. Didn't look like Nick Martin was ready at all. Maybe not surprising given the fact that he played only 4 games before getting hurt his final season at college at Oklahoma State. But by the time he cracked the starting lineup in December against the Browns, it appeared that Nick Martin had taken massive, massive strides. One thing about Nick is obviously when we saw him in the preseason, there was a lot of seasoning that still needed to happen, but he made his way to that Sam linebacker spot, but then the concussion happened. So I don't think that fans and media really got to see the progress that he had made. How big was that jump that he made from preseason to when he was in the game?
Yeah, you saw it. And the thing that I love about Nick is once you tell him something, all right, Nick, this situation happens, this going to occur, he sees it and it doesn't happen again. So it's just a matter of getting those scars, I call them scars at linebacker, making those mistakes. And once this is my theory, once you see something once, all right, it shouldn't happen again. A light bulb should click. Like, boom, I hear this thing coming that coach is talking about. Let me put myself in this proper position.
And I think that Nick, he's the most comparable to Dre Greenlaw when it comes to skill set. Dre at Arkansas, when they put the GPS chip in the shoulder pads, actually posted the fastest MPH time of any player on that Arkansas defense. So he could fly. Nick Martin, one of the fastest players on Oklahoma State's defense, he can also fly, and he's got that lower to the ground body type that we also see from Dre Greenlaw. So I think the ability to administer some tremendous violence. You've got a shorter, stockier, enforcer linebacker prospect in Nick Martin. Obviously, that is what Dre Greenlaw brought to the table for several years for the 49ers, and they hope that he can bring it again in 2026. Then you've got the longer linebacker prospects. Now, the 49ers have always gone for speed at the linebacker position. So you see a lot of guys with safety backgrounds convert to stack linebacker for San Francisco. Well, Jaden Duggar, safety first at Georgetown, then an edge rusher for Louisiana Lafayette. Then he moved into stack linebacker before the end of his college career. They're going to play him at that stack linebacker spot.
Yeah, it's not tall for him. It's more so like with his length, like I could just show you. You got to be able to like bend and like extend at the same time. You got to bend and extend. So he's all the way up here. All right, you got Jake Brendel who's going to try to get into you. He's trying to get underneath you. So you got to be able to bend, find a way to take edges, and based off your strength and skill set is how you take on blocks. My biggest thing is how can I get him good in the trenches, taking on blocks, getting off the offensive lineman and getting to the rock. The pass game, it's going to be a blast. It's going to be his get better as far as being in the trenches.
It's obvious that the 49ers love that he can do several different things, and they think that he is absolute moldable clay. The guy has a 7+ foot wingspan. This is essentially unheard of at the stack linebacker position. His arms are so long, 84 inches, that Mike and I actually believe the 49ers might ultimately move him to a more permanent edge rushing spot. But they really hope they can make it work at linebacker, because then you could deploy him as a Swiss Army knife everywhere. I do think that Duggar, this is more of a developmental pick. I think out of all the 49ers draft picks this year, he's the one that may be the most likely to be redshirted, because, I look at Enrique Cruz Jr., who was their final pick, the offensive tackle. There is a potential pathway to see playing time as a third offensive tackle on the field, a sixth offensive lineman or a tight end, But with Jaden Duggar, unless somebody gets hurt, multiple people get hurt, I love the skill set. I just don't know how quickly he's going to adapt to the NFL level. I think that 1 year of developmental window might actually make a lot of sense. There's also an undrafted free agent named Larry Worth, who brings some similar characteristics to the table. Another long ex-safety. Not quite as tall as Jaden Duggar, but also somebody with a coverage background who the 49ers have to teach to play the run. Probably have to bulk him up a little bit to play the run, because you're going to be in the fray there in that linebacker position. Bottom line is that they want the safeties and the linebackers not to be fully interchangeable, but they want the linebackers to be able to cover. And of course, you're going to want your safeties to be able to play the run. With all these 3 tight end sets, 13 personnel, really expanding across the league, you need versatile defenders on the other side of the ball. I think that the 49ers have actually paced the league. They've led the league in terms of linebacker philosophy over the course of the past decade. Obviously, the forefathers of it have been Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. And now to build a bridge into the future, you bring Greenlaw back on 1 year so he can help shepherd the youngsters into productivity moving into the future. We also can't forget that Tatum Bethune is still on this football team. I see him more as a Mike linebacker, though, somebody that could back up Fred Warner as the communication nerve of that defense. Players like a Jaden Duggar, like a Larry Worth, like a Nick Martin. 49ers obviously want interchangeability in that linebacker room, but I think initially you see those guys flying around from the weak side spot, where Dre Greenlaw is now the veteran, higher floor for San Francisco. Obviously, big-time issues at the weak side linebacker spot here over the past couple of years, where the 49ers have not had somebody to replace what Dre Greenlaw was able to do for them before. Still remember Devondre Campbell. Still remember Eric Kendricks coming in for the 49ers, saving the day for them at the linebacker position late last year. But they obviously want more stability there now. And if Warner can stay healthy, as he always had prior to the 2025 season, and if Dre Greenlaw can give the 49ers some quality snaps, they can build that bridge to the future. Remember, the key for the 49ers this year, the one defining variable, is going to be, where does the defense finish? Because they were in the 20s in 2025 after all those injuries. I think the offense is going to be a top 5 unit again. They're right on the cusp of top 5, despite not having receiving production, receiving separation last year. They've addressed the receiver issue big time. They took massive swings there. Guys stay healthy, that should be fixed. I think they've addressed what they've needed to on offense, health permitting. I think you can expect the top 5 offense for the 49ers. They addressed the special teams last year. Can it still become more consistent and better with better health? Of course. So those two phases of the game are there. Can the defense move up into the top half of the league? Maybe even the top 10. So much of that comes back to the linebacker position. The one where the 49ers, remember, back in 2017 when Saleh took over as defensive coordinator and Shanahan and Lynch were new on the job, the 49ers went after Reuben Foster with their second pick of the first round. They traded back in there to get Reuben Foster at number 31. Well, Foster obviously wasn't with the team for long, but that linebacker emphasis stayed. His replacement was Dre Greenlaw. Now Reuben is checking back in on the 49ers. Dre is actually with the team. San Francisco has saved a ton of money that way, and now they move forward with a linebacker core that should be substantially stronger than it was in 2025. And that, my friends, is the potential heart of the ticket to get the 49ers back up into the top half defensively. If you can add a pass rush with improved health, combine it with a much improved linebacker position, 49ers, I would say right away, you're talking top 12 defense with a ceiling for even more. And if you're talking about potential Super Bowl contention, that is the formula.